Well, it's another daily DTG. I'm Brian.
And I am Dean.
And we're here to talk about direct garments and a lot of other stuff. So let's get to it. All right, Dean. We had a little bit of a break there. Things have been crazy around the office, just trying to do so much stuff.
And it's weird, like this industry, it's got its dips and ups and downs, right? But it seems pretty consistent, at least from my experience. Like after Christmas, so late December, January, February is just like
slows down,
which is not. I mean, you can kind of regroup, get things.
But that's the time when you really get stuff done and prepped for the year.
Yeah. So you kind of need that time. But come March, it is March now.
It is March, and it's crazy. Marching towards madness.
There you go. Yeah, maybe that comes.
And not the basketball kind.
Sports ball, yay!
Yeah. And speaking of which, Ohio just got sports betting. Are you a gambler?
I am not.
Okay.
We were in Vegas, and I didn't spend a single penny on
You know what?
gambling.
I didn't this last time.
I drink. I'd rather.
That's the problem.
I'd rather get guaranteed. I'll spend my $5, get some Jack and Coke or something, and at least I'm getting something out of that, not just bye $5.
Well, they would say it's the pleasure and enjoyment of the challenge of the gamble.
But there's no challenge there. It's all luck of the draw. I don't subscribe to that illusion. So.
Addict.
But
So anyways,
I mean, when you do win, it is nice, right?
Yeah,
and you can't win unless if you don't play, you can't win.
True.
Blah 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 blah. So.
Yes.
But no, I'm in a much better mood because the weather is getting nicer.
Oh my goodness, it has been
finally
crappy. Okay. For those that live south of the Mason-Dixon line and nice area, my brother's moving to Florida, so he called yesterday. He's like, it was like 82 or 85 and sunny this afternoon. But I'm like, shut up. Of course, he's moving from Michigan where it's always bleak anyways. But
Ohio it's always gray. Like if we just didn't have the grayness so much, I would be a much happier guy.
Well, it's been crazy, though. End of February, first part of March, we've had some really nice days. Like yesterday was 65 degrees.
Could snow again, though. So.
But we were inside all day. And it's supposed to snow, but hey, welcome to Ohio. Welcome to all the fun weather-related stuff. And, God bless the people out west in California. They've got massive mountains of snow. Actually,
like legitimate mountains of snow.
I think one place was pushing 170% of their snowpack for the year. They got it in a couple of days, which is great for the water. For the water runoff in the spring, as long as they don't get monsoons of rain and then melts all that snow and all that. But
that's coming.
Yeah, but you know what? I think most of the state was out of the drought.
Yeah.
For the most part for California. So, yay, California, go there. Now they just need Lake Mead to fill up. I just read something today. They said a typical foot-acre of water would supply 2 to 3 households.
Foot-acre?
A foot-acre is 1 acre square, 1 foot of water.
Okay.
That's what a 1 foot acre of water would typically provide 2 to 3 households.
For a year?
For a year.
Oh, okay.
So, and that'd be general usage, bathing, flushing, and all that.
Yeah.
But they were talking about reducing it to half of a foot acre per household because Lake Mead has gotten so low. But it was interesting. They said, was it 20%? I can't remember the exact thing, but it was like 20% consume 40% of the water. 20% of the users. So think about that.
It makes sense.
I mean, hey.
Doesn't it powers Vegas and all that stuff too, right?
Oh my God.
And Palm Springs, which is a water suck.
But think about that. Okay.
The whole thing's a disaster.
For all those zombie apocalypse people, think about this.
Which
you're in the middle of the desert.
One of them.
No,
you like to think about these situations.
You think about it, but where would be the worst place to be during a zombie apocalypse when an EMP goes off and you're stuck? It would be Vegas.
Oh,
How are you
yeah,
getting
yeah.
out? It's desert. No vehicles. You're not going anywhere. How much water do you actually have on hand?
Not much.
I'm sitting here thinking every time I go to Vegas, I go, please, 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 don't let it be today.
Really?
Oh my gosh! I mean,
you mean the zombie apocalypse?
The zombie
See,
apocalypse
exactly.
EMP type thing. Hey,
why would it be
the
today?
paranoid?
The day that, you're not that lucky, Brian.
The paranoid
You are not that
survive.
Lucky. I know, that's true.
Not that I subscribe to that, but my son was a Boy Scout.
I wish we could be weathermen and make multiple six figures a year and just guess. I don't know what it's going to do today.
Well, my mind went somewhere really off kilter with that one, so I'll just leave that one.
Being a weatherman?
Yes.
Oh.
Nothing against weathermen.
No. I don't know how you would take that.
Don't think you could fit the mold for a beautiful weather woman.
Weather woman? Yeah, of course not. Yeah. A weatherman.
Weatherman.
Or weather them, or
weather them. Ohio,
Zim?
I just heard a thing. They were doing a storm watcher for Ohio. You can get training.
The whole problem is weather has gotten sensationalized, just like the media.
It's been weaponized.
We're not gonna get into any more of this because me and you could go off of.
We crash and burn quickly.
If you're still listening, this episode legitimately is about direct-to-garment
and pre-treating.
Okay,
and specific.
Yes, I'm glad you said.
So let's move on. Let's digress to the actual content that we're supposed to be talking about here, which is pre-treating.
This actually might be one of the most important shows we've done to date in regards to direct-to-garment.
Yes. Pre-treating in and of itself is a simple concept, but it's one of the most important and most overlooked aspects of direct-to-garment printing,
100%.
which has caused so much pain and suffering within the community, especially when you get a customer that buys a piece of equipment and the whole pre-treating process is glossed over during the sales pitch.
Yeah.
They get it home and then they go, oh, I got to do what?
There's another step. Yeah.
I got to do what?
Yeah.
You didn't teach me how to, and it really isn't that difficult. When it comes down to it, pre-treating in and of itself is not that difficult. It is a necessary step in the process to achieve my biggest joke is at the trade shows, I like to use this one. It's like, okay, printing is sexy. Mm-hmm. Pre-treating, not so sexy. So what's, this gets the glitz and the glamour while the pre-treating side is sort of left out to dry.
Which is a sad reality because in all honesty, the fact that pre-treating has never been focused on and brought to the forefront, it's really hindered, I think, direct-to-garment in general.
It has. On a tremendous scale because a lot of doing it improperly. Okay, so what are some of the improper ways? What happens when you don't pre-treat correctly? What's the end result?
You get a crappy print.
Weak whites.
Yeah, you get extremely weak whites. So we're talking on a dark garment, right?
On a dark garment with white ink. Yes. Anytime you're printing. Okay, let's first start with I guess we should go to when do you need to pre-treat? Okay, number one, if you're printing white ink on any color shirt, you have to pre-treat.
Because it's a necessary
step. If you're just doing CMYK printing only, color printing on a white shirt, no white ink involved, you don't necessarily have to pre-treat.
You don't have to, but it is highly suggested.
Highly suggested.
And the print results speak for themselves.
Massively. Especially like on, say, white polyester. That is where it is extremely most noticeable.
White cottons, we'll put up a graphic or something that once you see it, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
duh.
It's like, wow.
And with white, you don't really need, like with a light pre-treatment, you don't need that much. But it is a beneficial step because you get a much nicer end product. The vividness is there. Well, you were doing a study yesterday, right?
Yes.
We're playing around with.
We're actually working on improving our light shirt pre-treatments, which actually, to be honest with you, I'm kind of excited about.
I am too. It's pretty cool.
I'm not sure we can economically pull it off because I figured out some of the ratios and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, dang, I need to really dig into the grassroots chemical side. And I'm learning stuff that I'm like I can't even pronounce these words, let alone,
That's when you know they're good, right? Oh, yeah, if you can't pronounce them, that's good stuff.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. But anyways, so, that it basically the pre-treating actually, there was a study done by a friend of ours in the industry, Bill Greer, incredibly intelligent guy. And I love telling this story. He goes, Brian, do you know what you did with that light shirt formula? I go, yeah. He goes, no, you don't. And this guy is like on a military. Yeah. He's on another plane. I mean, the guy has.
He was geeking out on the actual science.
I'm geeking out on just the way he's. I'm trying to keep up with the way he's talking.
Okay.
And that was insane. He goes, but you don't know what you did. Just listen. So for 2 hours, he explains what. And it was because we were able to hold the dots. And typically, anytime you screen print or direct to garment print, what is going to happen is you're firing, even though it's a little teeny tiny dot, you'll get what's called dot gain. So if the dot is this big, it's going to grow a certain percentage.
Because what you're printing it on, the substrate, is going to absorb some of it.
And it spreads out. Whether you're screen printing and you print the dot, typically it's going to spread also. Okay.
Well, plastisols hold water-based.
It depends. It'll hold a little better, but with the water-based things, what we're doing, it can spread greatly.
Yeah.
And we were able to control that with our pre-treatment so much that we actually found deficiencies in some of the OEM inks. Because what will end up happening is everybody, if you're not familiar with it, you have CMYK, which is your cyan, magenta, yellow, and black colors. Those are all printed dot by dot to render other colors. So you always, the old commercial with the Ziploc bag, yellow and blue make green, that type of thing is
going back to primary, back to basic art school here. So, but that's how all digital printing is.
Correct. And that's how you achieve your 16 million colors, your color gamut. And the clarity within that color gamut depends a lot on what they try to do is compensate to achieve certain colors in the rip. They know that this color needs to be this because what will end up happening is you have two dots side by side, then they can grow and create a secondary color in between that shouldn't be there, which actually muddies the print a little bit. Now, if you're mixing cyan, magenta, and yellow, or black, yellow, magenta, or whatever, any three combination, you could actually make it four. You can get additional, which actually dot overlays of three colors will give you a tertiary color that shouldn't actually be there. But a lot of the rips, what they'll do is compensate for that dot gain because they know roughly the dot gain might be, let's say, 100% on a certain substrate. And they know that by placing these two dots together, they're going to get this color, so they'll modify the rip to accommodate for that. And we've actually seen, and this is where a good rip that is profiled correctly, and we're working on that
on one right now.
For like our Image Armor inks, will allow a much wider color gamut. But what the pre-treat actually would do is hold those dots sort of more in a vertical column. So the dot gain, I think according to his research, was actually only about 8%. Which
as opposed to what?
Is 100 to 300%, like depending on the substrate you're printing
300%?
Yeah, polyester.
Oh, yeah.
Untreated polyester. Okay. So what that did was allow the ink to sit more vertically, thus getting crisper, sharper images, and if profiled correctly, a much wider color gamut. Because the problem with some of the OEMs and the inks are they have a tendency to, I guess, bleed out would be a more accurate.
It's called crashing.
Well, some don't crash correctly, and I call it a deficiency in the ink in and of itself.
Yeah.
And that deficiency doesn't allow. It makes it harder for. Anyways, going back to what Bill was saying. Yeah, for ink control.
There you go.
So going back to what Bill was showing. He goes, everybody's been trying to correct it on this end, whereas what we did with the pre-treat actually allowed it to
print properly.
Print properly and gain a wider color gamut because it was more consistent and repeatable. You knew what you were going to get instead of it bleeding all over the place and getting muddy colors.
Yeah. So if you think of the pre-treat like a primer, right? It's kind of sitting on top of your fibers. And then the ink is sitting on top of that, so there's a sandwich layer.
Yeah, it's like a primer.
And it holds it as opposed to letting it the garment kind of soak it in.
Yeah, and the mechanics of the inks in and of itself, like screen printing, it's a mechanical bond.
Yeah.
With the water-based inks, there's a little bit of that, but you have an absorbent material. It's water-based pigment ink, so you have the pigments that are binding to the fibers, but a lot of times what you'll see and we're sort of going way off topic a little bit here, but in the brief thing is you can actually have, like on a CMYK print, you can actually have on an untreated shirt, unprinted fibers pop up through the ink film after it's been washed, which make it look like it's faded.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's what I was alluding to when you said we were doing some testing and you showed me those images. Put them under the microscope.
It was crazy.
Yeah. So think of, obviously your substrate is going to control a lot of your end print result. So it's funny, and I think we should probably post some of those pictures.
We'll intersperse some of these pictures through this.
So you think of when you print and press your shirt, it's sitting like this, right? All the fibers are kind of weaved together nicely. I guess that's even better.
Yeah, and it depends on the quality. Is it ring spun? Is it combed? Is it
mill
all that
cotton,
stuff?
But in an ideal world, say we're working with a black 100% ring spun cotton shirt, which is like the ideal substrate for a directed garment. When you press it and you pre-treat it, you're holding all of those fibers flat. And
what fibers are there?
What fibers are there? And then you're printing your ink on this flat, perfect surface, right? Or as perfect as can be.
As long as it's pre-treated.
If pre-treated correctly, yes. And then when you put it in the wash, obviously you're agitating
the wear and tear,
and it's moving, and you're loosening all those fibers up, and then you sort of get this ridged surface where all the fibers kind of are doing this, and then you get that poke through. Or a lot of people have questions. Well, why does the whites look like this, or why does the image look like it's faded, or and then when you look at it on a microscopic level, you actually see that it's just fiber shift.
Yeah, and so that's what a lot of it is, and what we're trying to do is
mitigate
it and make it so that all the fibers within that region,
the printed region,
are coated and holding the ink or absorbing the ink better to achieve it. And the stuff that we did, it was actually probably a 10-time increase, and it was insane.
It's pretty impressive.
And a lot of it comes down to how people wash their garments, whether it be a light shirt, white shirt, or whatever. Probably the hardest aspect is, obviously, you're supposed to turn the shirt inside out and wash gentle. Okay. And then you could lightly tumble dry, but then just air dry it so that it doesn't, because what we're doing testing wise is we're throwing it in the dryer for 60 minutes on hot and just pounding
it up.
Beating the crap out of it. And a lot of people just do that anyways, but that actually that's bad for the fibers themselves, because that wash and then heat and tumble cycle stresses the fibers and prematurely ages them. Whereas if you just do a gentle wash, gentle tumble dry, or just air dry, that garment is going to last a lot longer, and the print's going to look better. And this applies for screen printing and or water-based screen printing, like or DTG.
That's like an ideal world situation, though, because most people are just going to throw it in the laundry, and they're used to cleaning clothes the way that they clean clothes. You're not going to be able to re-educate a customer to wash a shirt a certain way.
Well, throw little stickers on your stuff that tell them how to wash.
Well, yeah, that's a good CYA.
Yeah.
At least as for the production side of things. Once it leaves your production facility, it's out of your hands. But you
can't help it that you washed it in acid,
But on our side, as a manufacturing side of things, we need to take that into consideration to make it and go, okay, real world realities,
and which is what we're trying to do.
Which is what we do. We test and refine and reformulate and do more testing and then more refining and try to make it to where it's as foolproof as possible, to where the end customer kind of gets the best result. But it's not a perfect process.
No. Okay. And talking about the process, we're gonna bunny trail if we don't keep on this. Pretreating.
Yeah. No. It's all loops back to pretreat.
and going back to that, the problems.
This is going to be a multiple.
Oh, this is going to have to be.
We can talk about pretreat forever.
We can, and that's the problem.
What I want to do here is kind of just double down on the fact that pretreatment is essential to good direct-to-garment
and
prints.
Don't overlook it, because that will effectively affect the end result.
Yeah.
Too little pretreatment will give a poor coverage and poor white. Mm-hmm. Potentially too much pretreatment can, in some instances, depending on the pretreatment, cause wash issues and degradation of that and peeling quickly. Mm-hmm. Because always you have to cure the ink and the pretreat properly. The pretreat, depending on the manufacturer, like with ours, we recommend you have to heat press it so it's dry. It needs to be totally dry. But there is sort of a sweet spot, and when you hit that sweet spot for, say, a good 30 singles ring spun garment, is you will achieve a beautiful white ink film. Beautiful white ink film.
Yeah.
And you have to remember this, the quality of the shirt, the coarser the thread, lower thread counts, mm-hmm. lower quality shirts are going to require more pretreatment. Now, my general rule of thumb is this. Darker garments will require more pretreatment than a lighter colored garment. And this is a sliding scale. And when everybody asks, well, how much pretreat do I put down? And I go, I can't tell you. And this is why.
I answer these questions every day.
Yeah. Dark pretreatment requires more, or dark shirts require more pretreatment than a light colored shirt. So like a light gray, you can get away with less pretreatment.
Yes.
A heavier shirt is going to require more pretreatment than a lighter weight shirt because there's more mass and material there that's going to absorb and suck up the pretreatment.
The liquid, yeah.
So you have the sliding scale, and the coarser the threads, typically on a lower quality, cheaper,
cotton.
Less inexpensive shirt, is going to require more pretreatment also. Think of it as regular copy paper, and you're printing a picture on it on your inkjet printer versus photo paper. Yeah. You get a super smooth surface, you can get away with less ink and get a phenomenal looking print versus this.
That's a great analogy for sure. Yeah.
So, but the sliding scale is you could have a super high thread count shirt and a super, like a light color, light gray, and you can get away with a lot less pretreatment than you could with a 18 singles shirt and a gray, which is going to require a lot more pretreatment. So it's a sliding scale based off of those factors.
Plus additional factors to that, you have humidity for your working area or where you're at geologically. Mm-hmm. You have your elevation, which plays with humidity and water absorption, right?
The elevation actually deals with elevation. I wouldn't really play, but humidity-wise, if you live in a super moist environment, like I remember going to New Orleans for a trade show years ago. And they couldn't leave their bread sit out for more than a couple hours because it would mold up. It was like freaking 110% humidity at like 6 a.m.
Yeah. So your shirts, your garments, your blanks are going to absorb that.
Yeah, and you need to get that moisture out. Yeah. And it's going to take longer on the press. A lot of times with the pre-treating, we also recommend. I don't like using the silicone sheets.
Teflon is what
Teflon.
Yeah.
Because it can trap the pre-treatment.
And it can leave a
trap the moisture, which can cause crystallization issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also give you a shine. So the more pre-treat that you put on too, you got to remember it's going to give more of a hand and feel to the shirt.
Yep. You're applying something that wasn't there originally. You're putting, even though you necessarily, and if you're doing it right, you can't see it, but it's there. It's an added chemical composition onto your garment.
Well, yeah, and that's part of the problem too, is a color, how the shirts are made, residual chemicals, and the dyes used can result in how the pre-treatment is perceived on the shirt.
Yep.
And people don't realize that. Well, it's like, this is changing.
Not all shirts are created equal.
Okay. What are the worst colors of shirts, Dean, for pre-treating?
Baby blue, orange, heathered colors seem to be particularly hard.
Like a charcoal.
Like
typically.
Charcoal. But it's like that pastels, terrible.
Some pastels. We've actually seen an improvement with the platinum.
Well, with our new reformulation, trying to figure out, make it easier for
and
things,
also
open the gamut up. But
leftover residual chemicals from the manufacturing process.
Yeah.
Typically, your more expensive shirts, for the most part, are going to end up being a better choice because they're more expensive for a reason. Probably higher thread count and more processes to make the shirt better.
Yeah.
A lot of the more inexpensive shirts that everybody wants to print on, and really what it costs to save a little bit, you have to apply more pre-treatment and more white ink, which is going to outweigh, and we can look at those in another episode.
Don't trip over $1 to pick up a penny. That's what it comes down to. It's like, okay,
think about it. Think about it.
But
we've actually shown on some shirts it may require 25 grams of pre-treat, but we've been able to cut that in half using a higher quality shirt.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's half the cost of the pre-treat. Now, depending on what you're paying for the pre-treatment and your size, as I beat our display up here,
it all adds up.
Yeah, if you can cut your costs there and maintain the same ink level or lower ink level, you're saving money in the long run. Now, you pay a little more for the shirt, but
it all factors out. And with direct-to-garment, you can't think in the mindset of screen print pricing. A lot of people there's a lot of crossover there too. So you have to break that mindset, especially, and it's not necessarily the production mindset. It's going to be more the consumer, the end customer mindset of, hey, I'm used to getting these shirts for $8 a piece. Why are yours $14 a piece? Well, it's not the same process. Plus, you're giving me a photo that has 16 million colors in it,
and you want two of them.
Yeah, exactly. See, and then the quantity jumps down too. So you have to price for the process. Number one.
That also.
But my whole thing with pre-treatment is it's done. The industry itself has done a disservice. Well. Obviously we can get into the science of pre-treatment because you, especially in this industry, understand it on a level that is like, up out of the camera reach, like way up here. You know the science. We manufacture pre-treatment here, and you've refined it, and the chemical composition.
We've been working on it since the early days.
And we even know past the pre-treatment creation, we know how to apply it properly too because we manufacture machines. But we can get into that in multiple episodes. Yeah. What I want to hit home here is just the importance. Like the industry itself has never shined the proper light on pre-treatment.
No, and I think that's a deficiency in the sales pitch because again, it's not the sexy part of the process.
It's not sexy, but it's just like if we were to relate this to screen printing, you have to have clean screens.
Yep.
You have to
have good, properly reclaimed screens, so you don't have crap in the screens that
you
cause
have
issues.
To reclaim them to where they are ready to roll and be perfect, basically like a new or as close to a new screen to do the whole printing process over again.
Correctly. Yeah.
So pre-treatment is like that in comparison to screen printing. It's ugly. It's dirty. It's the messy part. And
I am the black sheep of the family, to be honest with you. And that's the other joke. It's sort of like nobody what's the biggest issue though? Anytime we've gone to a show and talked to people, the biggest issue well, I shouldn't say the biggest issue, is how is it applied?
Yeah. So that's the other part is okay, so if we round back to why this hasn't been brought into the light, I want to use our platform here to try to bring pretreatment and talks about it up to surface. But another reason why none of the major manufacturers, they're selling you the flashy, sexy part, the printer, right? None of them have really dove in and invested their time, research, money, resources into developing a dedicated pretreatment machine either.
Well,
like there's not an Epson branded pretreatment machine. There's not a Brother branded pretreatment machine.
They're using third party because it was from the beginning. It was pretreatment was never. It was a
secondary
afterthought. It was an afterthought. I remember in the early days with one manufacturer. But it shifted back
the other way.
The early days with one manufacturer, they still, when I started working with them, showed how to use a roller and just roll it onto the shirt.
The sad thing about that, Brian, the sad thing about that, though, is there are still machine manufacturers suggesting these types of Band-Aid fixes and stuff.
Yeah, and
because they haven't caught up to the fact that the pretreatment is so important. It makes sense though. Think about it. The first direct-to-garment printer. What are we doing? Hey, let's take a desktop printer and make it bigger and make it print to a shirt. Right? Perfect.
Great idea.
We can do it with colors. Right? Okay. How do we make these colors more vibrant? Oh, you have to figure out a solution that holds the dot gain, right, and gives you more crisper prints. That's pretreatment. Okay, so even after the thought of direct-to-garment pretreatment was secondary.
It was an afterthought. And
as soon as we get to talking about white ink, I want to print onto a dark garment. How do we get the white ink to stick and stay on top of a garment? You have to use pretreatment.
Yes.
So then it becomes the first step. But the industry never did a position change to where to go. Pretreatment is the first step that you take. You have to use a good pretreatment solution. You have to apply it the right way. You have to use good garments. Get 1, 2, and 3 done. Then comes the printer, the printing.
Yeah.
But people don't think about it even to this day, and it drives me crazy.
I'm gonna get flack for this from some people out there watching this.
Well, don't.
No.
What kind of flack?
Flack from do not hand spray.
Oh, God.
Do not use a Wagner power sprayer. I know there are still some manufacturers.
I'm in that flack boat with you because I hate the hand
but
sprayer.
I
throw it in the damn trash.
No.
It's made to paint a fence.
Can you do it? Yes. There are multiple problems with that whole process.
Does it work? Yes. Yes, it works.
Can you make it work? Yes. Do you know how much you're putting on? No. And anybody that tells me they can tell by looking at the shirt,
full of shit.
I tell this story multiple times.
Let's break out the scale.
I argued with a guy at a show. I know exactly how I've been doing this for 3 years. I'm sorry, I've been doing it for 10 years, but whatever. He goes, I can tell by just looking at it on a shirt how much is on that shirt. And I'm like, bullcrap, because depending on the finish of the shirt, and I've shown it with our machines here that can consistently and repeatedly lay down the exact same amount, plus or minus probably 0.5 gram if you want to get crazy. I've had some shirts that look like it's super wet because the pre-treat was sitting up on top of the shirt
of the fibers.
Because of the residual chemicals in the finish of the shirt.
Yeah.
Where the same exact amount of pre-treatment on a different shirt,
same color,
same color, same everything, soaked in and looked like there was barely any pre-treatment on it. You can't tell, and that's where utilizing a mechanical, repeatable, automated system is the best option for applying pretreatment. Now, there are some people, it's a cheap way to get started. Some of the printer manufacturers...
And I honestly suggest having one as a backup. If you're
as an emergency only.
Yeah, as your dedicated pretreatment machine, something happens, a pump goes out, whatever. They're pretty reliable, but things do happen. It's nice to have that there as a backup. Ideally, you'd have a smaller unit, more agile, dedicated machine, such as like a Viper Mini, but
or
anyways,
something. Or don't pre-treat and use a pre-treated shirt like
like our RTP, a shirt that's just
or
ready
something
to go.
like that.
Anyways,
we digress. But there are some manufacturers that would include these hand sprayers in with their printer, and that That leads to a lot of problems because they're not properly trained.
Now, I do. It is beneficial to give your customers everything that they need to get going, right?
Correct.
But that's not
the optimal way to do it.
That's like saying, I always go back to this too. You can dig a pool with a hand shovel, right?
You can.
You can.
You can dig with a spoon too.
Yeah. I can cut down a tree with, my Swiss Army knife. Is it the best way to do it? Is it the most efficient way to do it? Hell no. It is possible to be done, right? But it's not the best way to do it. No. Use the right tools for the job.
And in this case, it doesn't have to be one of our pre-treat
exactly,
machines.
And that's what I say. I tell people all the time, because I get into it online because I'm very passionate about this. I believe that pre-treatment is so beneficial to the industry as a whole that, I get excited and heated about it and tell people you need to focus on the pre-treatment. You need to have a machine, number one. Number two, you need to figure out your own T-shirt matrix. Just because all the things that we talked about earlier, a general T-shirt matrix doesn't work for the guy in Louisiana that's going to work for the guy out in the middle of the desert.
It may be slightly different, and it depends
on your
where
solution you're using too.
Solution and where the shirts are manufactured.
Yeah, and there's so many factors, but to build one out for yourself for your particular operation is hugely beneficial.
Yeah, and it's not that hard. It's not that hard.
It's not hard to do at all, but people just want. I don't want to do the matrix. I don't want to put the time into building my own matrix.
The problem is that's
too bad.
That's sort of, I think, a part of the reason why you have an artist that's okay, and then you have artists that excel and are just premium.
Because they hone their craft.
They know their craft, and they're not afraid to put the time in and do the stuff. A lot of people...
Which every shop should think. If you want to be more successful than the guy down the street, hone your craft.
Be better. Be the best. Be the best. Realizing there's somebody that will always be better than you.
And take the time to make yourself better. It takes time. It takes trial. Yes. You don't just do something one day and go, holy shit, I did that better than everybody else around me. It's repetition.
Really?
It's training. Yeah, right. Some people get lucky, but not this guy. I mean,
but that's the thing. A lot of people don't, and I contribute that a lot to the instant society that we live in. Yeah. Amazon next day, same day delivery now, and all that type of stuff.
The mindset of direct to garment is sort of instant. It's like you have a file. You don't need to do all the steps and break down all the screens and do all the
you can get your shirt right now. But can you? Yes, you can push the button, but you still have to do the back end stuff to get a good print. There are still some steps. And here's the biggest takeaway from this is, if you're getting into direct-to-garment or you're new into it, take the time, like you said, to learn the craft, to learn the basics, and enhance your knowledge with that. You're going to find that some shirts will perform a lot better than others. Mm-hmm. Not every 30 single shirt is going to perform the same.
Yeah.
So that being said, if you and it makes it a lot easier. I mean, again, going back, it's sort of like driving a car stick shift. Mm-hmm. You can learn to drive stick shift and do it okay, but to drive a stick shift Lamborghini at high speeds on a closed course at 220 mile an hour, that takes a little bit of a different skill. If you try to do that just with the basics, you're gonna, you try and do it with your Yugo. You try and do it with your Yugo car. If anybody remembers a Yugo, or a Gremlin
from Yugoslavia. I know Yugos.
I actually went to a car show and saw an old. It was from, I think it was a Yugo or something like that. You had to mix the oil with the gasoline.
Yeah, two-stroke.
Two-stroke. You had to mix the oil with the gas when you filled up. There was no oil. There was no oil
injector.
No, it was all. It was like, I went. That's messed up.
Two-stroke didn't catch on.
That is messed up. But anyways, so the biggest takeaway here is, it is super important. Learn your craft. Learn how to pre-treat. As a general rule of thumb, I tell people start with 18 to 24 grams of pre-treatment on a standard shirt.
Yeah, there are generalities for sure.
And that's a good starting point.
Now, you're speaking for Image Armor.
In general, yeah, because, for what we recommend for
because we know for our pretreatment, yeah.
I mean, some pretreatments may require more, some may require less. It depends on the concentrate. Some OEMs give a concentrate, and I've seen them say mix it 1-to-1, mix it 2-to-1. I've seen people then mix it 3-to-1. It depends.
I saw one recently 9-to-1.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's sort of pushing it for me from a consistency side. There's a lot to go wrong there. But anyways,
I don't want to get into that.
Anyways, the point there being is start with a general rule of thumb, and there are tools out there that you can do to determine the optimal amount of pretreatment.
Yeah.
Ideally, what you want to do is, let's say you're doing 18 grams, 20 grams, 22 grams, 24 grams, or 14 to 24 grams of pretreatment in 2-gram increments.
So you're describing a way to test.
A way to test. And you can do this. I'm going to explain how you can do this, but it's a lot more labor intensive. When we're talking about grams, that's typically for like a 14 by 16 sprayed area. So you would take a shirt in a gram scale, put it on there, zero it out, spray a 14 by 16 area, reweigh it. Reweigh it wet. That would be the amount of grams when we're talking in generalities. And this is a problem in the industry too, is nobody really understands this, is that 14 by 16 inch area, which is, I believe, 216 square inches, is, let's say, 24 grams. Okay. That would be a 24 gram. If you spray it and you get 24 grams, that would be the equivalent of when we're talking about 24 grams of pre-treat for that 14 by 16 area. Now, if you want 18 grams, it would still be the same 14 by 16 area. You just have to reduce the amount of your laydown to achieve that 18 grams. One side note on this, I'm doing a left chest. How much do I put down? You would still put down either 18 or 24 grams, let's say in this example, but it's not 18 grams in this small area. It's for that 14 by 16. Since the beginning and inception, it's always been like, hey, apply 25 grams, 30 grams to the shirt. And people think, well, I sprayed this big 18 by 30 inch area and it's 30 grams. No, it's not. That's where a lot of the misconceptions come in on consistency within the industry. Okay, as far as application. So if I'm applying 18 grams of pretreatment to this 14 by 16 inch area, if I carve out the small little area for a left chest, it's still 18 grams for this bigger area. It's the same amount of fluid applied, but it actually comes down to the amount of pretreatment per square inch. Okay. But you can't go talking 0.01 grams per square inch. Or 0.018 grams per square. That's too complicated for people.
A machine does this for you.
A machine will do this for you. If you know at this setting, whatever setting it is, on a scale of 1 to 20 or 1 to 100, or it's a percentage. 4 or 5, at this setting, I get 18 grams. It doesn't matter if you're spraying this area or this area, you're getting that equivalency of 18 grams of pretreatment for 14 by 16. Like I said, it goes down to actually that. And that's a big misconception, is people think, well, it's not 18 grams. That's going to be too much if I apply 18 grams for a left chest. No, it's, again, that 14 by 16 inch area. That being said, the easiest way to consistently apply the pretreatment is with a machine. Yeah. And I plug our Viper line shamelessly here because it is an incredibly valuable tool. And we have everything from, the beginner intro like the Viper Mini to our monster machine, which is where I was going to.
Don't skip over the 1000, man.
The 1000.
I cut my teeth on the 1000.
I know.
I love that machine.
I know. But my point is we have everything from beginner to high-end production. But the point of this was determining the correct amount of pretreatment for white ink on any shirt is building a scale up where you might have, like I said, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24 grams. You would print a white bar on it.
Mm-hmm. Across all those different zones.
Well, I'm not even talking about the zones. I'm talking on different shirts. So you would have to spray a different shirt with the 14 grams spray shirt, print a white bar. A shirt with 16 grams, print a white bar. So you can see the graduation of the opacity increasing with more pretreatment for that particular garment. Okay.
Well, so let me clarify there, because you were saying different shirt.
The same shirt, a black shirt, a 30 singles black shirt, but you take one shirt, do 14 grams, print a white bar. You take another shirt, black shirt
of the same
exact shirt.
Okay,
so you can determine what you're looking for is optimal white, where you can't see an increase in the opacity of the white ink. So this amount of pretreatment, say it's 20 versus 22, I can't tell a difference in the whiteness. So 20 is all you need. 20 would be all you need. Yeah. Now that's a lot of work, and when you think about it,
I could speed that up. I easily could see speeding that. You can do it on one shirt.
That's where I was sort of going. Okay, so shameless self-plug here.
Well, I know with the Max it's built in. We'll get to that. Yeah. But for people that want to test this,
if you have a machine that can lay down a minimal amount of pre-treat,
you can actually do it with like a piece of paper you'd slide. So it's basically like a step test in screen printing to figure out your burn.
You're
times.
Just laying down. If you
did one area and sprayed it, and then as soon as you shifted your paper, you open that area up, but that one area that you started with is still exposed.
Let's say it's 5 grams to make it easy for math. So this column would be 5 grams. You move your paper,
and now you got 5 grams on the new area and 10 grams on the original one, and then you move it again. And then you got 5, 10, and 15. And then you move it again, and then you got, it goes up to 20 and then 25. So that's a good way to do it if you need to test.
If your machine can handle that low of an increment of spraying. That's the problem. A lot of machines can't.
So the pumps are very powerful.
And apply a fair amount of pre-treatment, even on the lowest settings. Now, again, the only way to really achieve that is to do individual shirts that way.
That's
now,
true.
On the our 1,000, we've done that and step tested it.
Yeah, and I was thinking more along the lines of people, because
you're hand spraying,
people are still hand spraying. There are stubborn people out there that are just going to continue.
And that's not an insult,
because I've been doing it for 4 years.
Yeah, and that's not an insult to anybody, because you can get good at hand spraying.
You can get good as soon as you get your employee in there. And you get the 18-year-old kid off the street that wants to make some T-shirts with you, and you throw him at pre-treating, guess what? He is not going to hand spray exactly like you did.
Or your employee had a really rough Thursday night out at the bar.
You're not thinking. The inconsistency factor is costing you money.
Yes, and that's the whole thing. It's about making money.
Yeah, and if you're wasting money just because you're being stubborn to save, to pick up that penny by tripping over $1, you got to think about it just a little bit differently.
And the return on investment.
That's the importance of pre-treatment.
And the return on investment, if you think about it.
I have something right here. You can keep talking. Okay. I can quote this person, and we're going to shout somebody out for the first time. So hopefully they listen to the show. This is good.
Oh, okay.
This is real good.
All right. So taking this, we're talking about the step test. Our Viper Max actually has that built in, where it'll spray 6 individual columns, and you can
on one
shirt, and you can set the amount of pre-treatment level for each of those columns, increase it however you want. There's a base default. What that allows you to do is heat press one sprayed shirt, print one white bar across it.
It goes across all columns.
It goes across all the columns, and you can physically see the step test and pinpoint.
We got a good graphic. We'll throw up here on the screen.
If I can find it in my hoard of
files,
my terabytes of stuff.
So speaking of pre-treatment, somebody on one of the several forums, which I think if you're watching or listening to this, you should definitely be a part of as well. Lots of direct-to-garment based forums or pages, I guess you would say, on Facebook. But somebody broached this question. I wonder what pre-treatment hey, I wonder what you use for pre-treating your garments. Loads of people, including me, use pre-treatment machines, but tons of people also use spray guns like the Wagner. If you ever use both, I want to know what your thoughts are for which is better and why. So this was a very poignant question. I love this type of question. So I was like,
and this
so gung-ho.
And after 10 years of this industry, people were still asking the same basic questions.
So I was just like nipping, you know me. I was nipping to jump in, but I don't want to come off as the pushy guy. And I did eventually reply my 2 cents, knowledge being as a shop owner at one point and also now being in the industry, understanding it from both sides. So I gave my 2 cents. But some of these other people said, machines by a long mile. Jimmy here says machines by a long mile. It's the only advantage is for the guys that want to use the guns is that it's cheaper. Somebody said I use both. I still use the spray gun for a smaller pocket area because my pretreatment machine can't do isolated zones very well. But I use a pre-treater, and it's exponentially grown my business. The one that I was looking for in here, right here, Anna.
Hi, Anna.
Anna Carlos, or Anya. I'm sorry.
Anya.
I'm sorry if I... Anya.
A-N-J?
A-N-A-Y-A.
Anaya. Anaya?
We are really hacking up your name.
Wow, we
Miss
apologize
Carlos.
in advance.
There's our
if you're watching, let us know. We'll correct it.
Yell at us. But this is exactly word for word with what she said. I went from a spray bottle to a spray gun to a pre-treatment machine. Huge, capital letters difference with the machine, not going back. Anyway, we put in the work, and it's already paid for the pre-treatment machine.
And think about that. That's what a lot of people don't get.
And then I literally wrote, this is such a hugely beneficial comment.
Yeah.
I hope it helps, but of course, you can't purchase a pre-treatment machine just yet or just starting out. I would go with a spray gun or something and then make an investment to get either a used machine and then get the machine that you want.
Yeah.
So
okay, but let's think about that. She said huge investment that paid for itself. If you spray a shirt, and you print that shirt, you have the shirt cost.
Yep.
Let's add this up real quick.
Okay.
A general black shirt, medium quality, and we're not going to go super high end, but we're still about $3.
$3.
You have your pre-treatment. Anywhere
50,
from 25 to 60, 75 cents, let's say. Okay. Let's make it round numbers. Let's say 50 cents.
50 cents.
Okay.
$3, 50 cents.
We're using round numbers here. Don't get on me about, well, I get it for 10 cents, that type of thing. So we're at $3.50.
Okay.
Your time to spray it, even if it's a general person, it doesn't take long to necessarily pre-treat something, but it's still lost revenue. Let's say that's 10 cents. Let's make it just 10 cents. $3.60
Perfect.
right now. Your ink, which in direct-to-garment is one of the bigger expenses, and that could have been anywhere from $1 to a couple dollars per shirt.
Yeah.
So let's just say let's be on the conservative side. Say it's $1.
Okay.
So we're at $4.60 just for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you have to redo this shirt. Now you're up to $9.20 for one shirt.
Yeah.
Okay. You lost $4.60 probably minimum on that. Besides the extra time and effort, which is lost, it's an lost opportunity cost you can never get back.
And if you factor in the pricing structure of this particular person, might be going the bottom of the barrel route, so they're not charging enough for their end garment. You just ate up your profit margin
if
on that one wasted shirt.
If you made any money at all.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. How does it pay for itself? Again, let's go back to if you can save time, save ink, and
save
on top
garments.
of that, if you pre-treat it correctly and use a good quality shirt, that's where we go back to that more expensive shirt that might be $3.50, $4.
Yeah.
Okay. But you can cut your pre-treat in half, so we go from 50 cents to 25 cents. Let's just take that number in and of itself. Using a better quality shirt, you can save $0.25 in pre-treatment probably use less ink and get the same results. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can cut your ink costs back, so you're saving money there. But let's just look at the pre-treat. For every 4 shirts that you pre-treat, that's $1.
Roughly.
Roughly. Yeah. That you are saving. Okay, that's money. That's money in your pocket. Now, and this is not a salesy thing in any way, shape, or form.
Somebody would go $1. Ooh, whoopee. But in the apparel industry, we're fighting over dollars.
But over 10,000 shirts, and people think, okay, that's over the course of 1 year, that is a $2,500 savings, which can pay for a lot of the pre-treat machines out on the market. Point being is that's just one small component. That's saving on the pre-treat. By using a better quality shirt, you have fewer rejects, et cetera, et cetera.
I think the time savings is huge.
And the time savings and the mess and.
Yeah.
You know, so the more efficient you are in production, the less pre-treat you use. It takes less to dry the water out of the pre-treatment, so you can. It speeds up your printing time.
Get to printing quicker,
much quicker.
I never actually thought of that. That's a whole other factor.
And if you think about it, it uses. Technically, you could get away with saying it uses less electricity because less time. You can get more throughput on your pre-treat if you're heat pressing or conveyor drying or whatever.
So I have to be devil's advocate here because somebody could be listening to this or watching and saying, "Ooh, okay, electricity. How much electricity am I using? How much of the?" But going back to episodes that we've talked to, we always hit home on know your numbers.
Yes.
You have to if you want to know your numbers and actually grow your business, you literally know down to the penny of what your operation is doing. The more you can control your expense, the more you can reinvest, the more profit
you're going to make.
You have to think this way,
and the more efficient you are, the more shirts per hour you can get out, which is an increase
in time. Your time value is higher.
Yeah. And if for the same profit margin, if you can only do 15 shirts an hour, versus let's say your printer is capable of this. We got to take this into account. 30 shirts an hour, let's say.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. 30 shirts an hour, but you're only able to do 15 shirts an hour because of your process.
Yeah.
You're leaving 15 shirts on the table. If your net margin is, let's say, $5, just make it easy. Per shirt, that's 15 shirts that you're not printing at $5 net profit. That's $75 an hour you're leaving on the table. That you again, lost opportunity cost. You can never get that time back. Time is the currency that we live by in our lives, in business, and everything. So then you start throwing in misprints on that. Instead of getting 15 shirts an hour, you might be down to 13. So you just lost another $10 an hour right there on top of that. So when we really dig into it, that's where we say automating and doing a good job on the pre-treating side will definitely save on the back side financially. So does a machine pay for itself, an automated pre-treating machine?
Eventually,
yes, it does.
Eventually, yeah.
But it's not necessarily a visible, tangible thing.
Yeah,
you're only gonna see it when I screwed up the pre-treat because I sprayed wrong, missprayed, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
and a lot of this mindset is for production-based printing as well. Which, if you're growing your business, eventually you probably do get into some production. Now, there are going to be the occasional people out there that just have their niche and they print, this one design one time a day, and then they're constantly changing, printing multiple different, you can get away with some of this loose operational cost because you're charging
when you're
more
smaller,
your end product.
When you're smaller.
Yeah, but if you want to grow, which, what business doesn't
if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
And that's, we talk about that all the time here.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to keep feeding the beast. And I have to joke, it's like you have a business and it's easy to grow 300% a year when you're small because you go from $100 in sales to $1,000 in sales. Woo-hoo! Holy mackerel. That is like huge. That's 1,000% increase. That's 10 times.
Yeah.
And then 1,000 to 10,000 and 10,000 to 100,000. You're 1,000% your growth rate. You reach a certain point where those numbers aren't. It's like Amazon. They can't continue growing exponentially forever.
Yeah. It'll plateau out.
It sort of plateaus, and it starts, the rate of return starts diminishing as you grow bigger. And you have to maintain and keep growing because your expenses increase. But I joke, it's like feeding a monster. Don't feed the gremlins after midnight, because what ends up happening is that monster grows and you feed the monster, then it gets a little bigger, and then it takes more to feed it and more and more and more. And when I joke about that, it's additional employees, additional overhead, a bigger building, more electric consumption, all this, more printers, da-da-da-da-da. But that's just a part of the growth process.
Yeah.
And managing it effectively.
It's exciting.
And pre-treating sort of keels all the way back down to it's the foundation of direct-to-garment printing.
It is.
And henceforth, why we say it's so
I
important.
want to make pre-treating sexy. Going back to
dude,
it's never been sexy. What do I have to do to make it sexy?
You can put lipstick on it.
Pre-treat on me.
You can put lipstick on a pig. It doesn't mean it's going to make it look great.
Hey, to a male pig, you might pick that lipsticked one over
this
one
is a family,
right?
semi-family friendly show. Jeez. All right. Well, with that being said,
pre-treat. It's important.
Yeah, it is very important. This is just one of many
we'll get more
episodes that we're going to dig into. I just wanted to touch base on the foundations of it today.
Yes. Get a pre-treatment machine. If you have a fence painter, let that paint your fence. Get a dedicated tool for the job that you're trying to do.
You know what we'll do? We'll throw.
That's all I want to say.
And
you used one.
That being
something.
And that being said, this episode of Daily DTG is sponsored by iGroup Technologies. Here's the video.
There you go. Hey.
All right. Now we're back
Shameless
after
plug,
that
right?
shameless plug.
We had to.
Yeah, we'll wrap this episode up because we've got so much more we can go on forever.
Yes.
But
Pre-treatment will come up multiple times, but
yes.
And again, just like I jumped on one of the pages there earlier. Daily DTG has a Facebook page. Please subscribe, listen, comment.
Yes.
Send us suggestions. Send us your questions. It can be extremely particular to your scenario. Like, it doesn't have to be a generality. We'll try to do our best to help you with your particular problem, but
figure it out because our goals. We want to see people. Yeah, we've been there, and I like
we talk
seeing
to other people that have
successful.
had that problem. I talk to people every day working here. When I'm working on the graphics on my computer and stuff, I have access to the phone. If the front office doesn't get it, I'm one of the first people it rings to. Happy to pick up the phone.
Dean, take it. I'm not sure what's. They're asking something, and that's the thing. There's a lot of it's just experience.
And so many of my conversations is, why does it look like this? Okay, send me a picture. I see the picture. Guess what? Pre-treatment issues.
Oh.
Every day. Pre-treatment issues. Well, I got this gun, this handgun that came. Oh my god. I'll even tell people on the phone, Brian, I'll admit this. Sorry to say this, but I probably do a kind of a bad job at pushing our machines. I just want people to get a machine.
Absolutely.
Eventually, if I put the keys in their hands, say, hey, get a machine, understand why a machine is beneficial. Then do your research. Figure out, is this the machine for me?
Yes.
Or is there other machine options out there? And then decide which machine you want.
And there are other machines out there.
I did that exact same process.
And there's a lot of pre-treat machines out there. We are biased, but I do believe that we manufacture, all of our stuff is made here in the U.S. Yeah. We've designed them.
Well, there's a reason why.
Designed them here in the U.S. We manufacture here in the U.S.
I did my research and I landed on Viper even before working here for a reason, because I did the research.
Yeah, and that was back in the day before we had the great products we have now.
Yeah, and that was back when you had Doghouse. I had a Doghouse, was my first Viper with pneumatic.
The Viper
one, too.
1.
But there was a reason why I wanted that machine, because I did my research. I saw what was out there. Anyways,
but that's the whole point is
just get a machine,
research and pre-treat correctly, whether it be ours, somebody else's.
It's so important. It is so important.
And it will make DTG printing more enjoyable.
It will help the industry. Honestly, going back to what I've said at the very beginning of this episode, DTG has done itself a disservice by not focusing on pre-treatment.
Absolutely.
The whole industry.
Absolutely.
We got DTF now
and us
because
included,
people don't want pre-treat.
And us included, we're just trying now to educate people more via this platform to educate people. Why? Because the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know.
There you go. The more successful you
and the more successful you can be. And, it's just one of those things where arm yourself with the proper knowledge, tools, and attitude.
Big one.
To be successful in direct-to-garment printing. And with that being said, we'll wrap up this episode once again of the Daily DTG. And we appreciate everybody stopping by. Make sure you tune in.
We're on Spotify now.
We are on Spotify.
I think I made mention, but it's on Spotify and Anchor. We have a Facebook page.
So sign up, hit that like button and the notifications button so that you can get notified when we release a new Daily DTG. We are going to try to be a little more diligent in spite of our busy schedules here to get more good content out. And I'd kind of like to start doing some live stuff so we can have people ask questions on the fly.
Have some guests,
Yeah, and just roll with it.
Virtual guests.
So that being said, we will catch you next time on the Daily DTG.